Now, YouTube might be the most successful site on the internet, serving at least 100 million video clips every single day. I mean, it seems like an unstoppable force, but now Viacom, they want to take them down a peg or two. Take a look. In only 2 years, YouTube has already rocketed past Google and Yahoo to become the #1 in web video. However, some now regard YouTube as the new Napster, a startup.com that shot to the top on the backs of content owners. But now those owners aren't going to take it anymore. Last week, Viacom, the owner of TV channels CBS, MTV, and Comedy Central, launched an unprecedented attack against YouTube in the war on copyright infringement. Viacom demanded that YouTube take down a staggering 100,000 clips that violate their copyrights. YouTube responded by saying, quote, "The biggest feeling we have right now is regret that Viacom may miss out on the chance to interact with the YouTube community," end quote. But if this type of legal action continues, will there still be a community left? Will YouTube meet the same fate as Napster? Or is this just a bump in the road for the internet giant? Broadcast yourself. It's The Loop. All right, folks, joining us via satellite tonight from San Francisco, editor for Wired magazine, Mark McCluskey, and from the CNET studios, the executive editor for CNET.com, Miss Molly Wood. Welcome to The Loop, everybody. Molly, I'd love to start with you. Viacom, did they make the right move here, yes or no, in your opinion? Was this the right thing to tell YouTube, take down all these clips?
Well, it's hard to say if it's going to turn out to be the right thing, but I do think it's a pretty bold move, and I kind of admire it. I kind of like the idea that Viacom's basically saying to YouTube, you know, your attitude is that if we're not on YouTube, we're stupid, but our attitude is, hey, we're actually not getting that much out of it, so we're going to put this stuff up on our own site and on TV and let users come to us.
Well, Molly, just moments ago, Jeff Zucker from NBC Universal, he's saying, hey, you know what, YouTube, you need to give our clips the same protection you've given everybody else. Did Viacom just start a major domino effect that could crush YouTube, you think?
I think they might have, because I think it is a pretty big statement. It's kind of the first time that somebody said, you know what, we're not even going to try to negotiate with YouTube at this point. And I thought maybe the Viacom move was a negotiating tactic at first, but then they were quoted in the Wall Street Journal as saying, basically, we think it's bad marketing to be on YouTube. So I think they're kind of opening the door for these big networks to say, like, maybe it's not worth it to be there. Maybe we're not getting enough out of it.
Well, Mark, what do you think? Some viewers and some YouTube users, they're saying, hey, it costs Viacom nothing to have their clips on YouTube, and they're getting millions and millions of eyeballs. I mean, isn't that a mistake to pull your clips down?
You know, this isn't even the first time Viacom has done this. Late last year, they tried to pull a bunch of Daily Show and a bunch of Colbert Report clips, and people went nuts, and they put them back up because, you know, these guys aren't stupid. They know the audience is there. And you know, Molly makes the point that she thought it was a negotiating ploy, and I completely think it's a negotiating ploy. I think this is Viacom trying to find a little leverage and trying to do a deal to get revenue from YouTube for this stuff. I think it's nothing more than that, frankly.
See, I don't think it is anymore, actually. I think maybe that Viacom has done the math and they've said it's not worth it for us. We're not getting the ratings boost, and we can wrap this stuff in advertising and run it on our own site. I think the mistake they would make is if they had it all pulled off of YouTube and then they didn't put it online at their own site. But I think they're maybe saying, we want to bring people home to Viacom to watch this stuff.
And I think that would be great if we had sort of any sense of a critical mass of audience on any of these network sites, and that these networks had shown that they were willing to do that. You know, they've got this entire web of business relationships that they're trying to protect. Everything from advertisers to, you know, people who create the content to writers to directors. There are all these contracts, and none of them work in this new world where the audience has migrated online and you just don't sell a 30-second spot in the middle of it.
All right, well, Molly, let me ask you here, because YouTube's response to Viacom about this entire issue was, quote, it's unfortunate that YouTube will no longer be able to benefit from YouTube's passionate audience.
Right.
How does Viacom benefit from having its shows on YouTube exactly, other than those eyeballs? Do you think someone sees a Daily Show clip on YouTube and says, oh, okay, I want to start tuning into that show? Does that happen? Or do they say, oh, that was interesting, I'll wait till the next interesting clip pops up on YouTube and completely ignore the channel?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big question. Obviously, NBC was able to prove with The Office that when people got that show on iTunes, that translated into higher ratings for them. The difference was, though, that people were buying that show on iTunes. And so no one's buying these shows on YouTube. They must have, I'm thinking at this point, since as Mark pointed out, they did this once before, there was a huge outcry, they put it back, but they must have at this point realized nobody's paying to watch this stuff on YouTube, and maybe it's not translating into higher enough revenues, and Viacom has been pretty good about putting those same clips up on their own websites. So I'm thinking that they're just saying, there's no money in it for us.
Now, Mark, what do you think about YouTube's response to this request? Because I was doing multiple searches, throughout the week. I couldn't find a single clip, even under different tags, or maybe an older clip from a Daily Show or South Park that might have been labeled as something different. And they repeatedly said that they can't really control their content because users are uploading it, and yet it seems that overnight they were able to ban hundreds of thousands of clips. Isn't that kind of weird that YouTube has that control of the content, yet they say they don't have these protections in place?
Well, it's not a matter of can't. It's a matter of how you comply with the law. The way the copyright law is written right now, if YouTube puts everything up and then pulls things down the copyright owners complain about, then they aren't putting the burden on themselves to do that screening ahead of time. If they put that burden on themselves, then as a copyright owner, I come in and say, hey, you missed this, now you owe me damages. So, as a legal strategy, it's much easier for YouTube and Google to sort of throw up their hands and say, look, everything goes up, and then we deal with it later, and we will certainly comply with any request from any copyright owners. But
Molly, final word, though, in the light of Viacom and now with NBC getting the deal, is it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission approach, is that going to last long for YouTube, or are they going the way of Napster?
I think they're really between a rock and a hard place now because it's becoming really obvious to people that they can filter. They have themselves said in pursuit of these deals with the big networks, we're working on filtering technology. And like Mark said, that opens up a big legal can of worms for them.
Sure.
And I think once you lose all that great free content, you do have a problem with your audience.
Right. They'll finish the filters when they need to, as in when all the clips need to get pulled because they're being sued like crazy. All right. I want to thank our guests, Mark and Molly, for keeping us in the loop. We appreciate it, folks. YouTube, they might be in serious trouble. What makes the site great is the ability to share more than just America's youth ghostwriting the whip, if you will. It's about catching the latest SNL digital short, or Bill Gates being the nerd on The Daily Show, or a racist Michael Richards. Whatever. If Viacom doesn't want to play ball, and then that's fine. It's their content. It's their deal. But it'd be foolish to think that these videos aren't going to show up someplace else and that the problem's simply going to go away. So, hey, Viacom, listen up. Set some limits if you want. You deserve a kickback, but stopping on-demand video in the digital age, it's not going to happen. I hope you don't think that's the case.
Attack of the Show, weeknights at 7, only on G4.